Hello everyone. In the latest product release, we have introduced a new main application performance scoring dashboard. This dashboard is the first view you see when you connect to the Kadiska platform and is reachable by going to the home page. The dashboard shows you all applications you are currently monitoring. These are sorted by default by their name, but you may want to sort them by performance so that you will have the most degraded applications coming up first in the list. For that, you can simply select this sort by performance option and you will have the most degraded ones first. You may also want to look for specific applications. For that, you have the search bar available. In my case, I will look for Microsoft Teams, so I look for MS and I get it here right away. By default, you see that each widget provides only the score of the application performance. You can have more details by just simply fly over any of these widgets or by selecting the Show Details option here. Let's talk first about the main score you see here. So as stated before, this score is based on an AppDex. AppDex is an open standard which is used to calculate application performance index. It is based on a targeted performance value, and it is also based on the total number of users that are connecting to the application. And based on this targeted value of performance, the AppDex defines three types of user experience level, being good, tolerable, and critical. If you want to have more information about AppDex and how it is calculated, please refer to the Kadiska online documentation, where we explain all the details about that. So AppDex takes a targeted value of application performance into account for making the calculation. But which metric should we take into account? And what should be the targeted value of this performance metric? Well, with Kadiska, everything is automated. So it means first that Kadiska will automatically distinguish between single page applications versus multiple page applications. You know that single page applications performance are mainly driven by API calls performance versus multiple pages applications that are more traditional web pages sites that are mainly driven by the time it takes for the browser to refresh a page. So it means that in this case, we will take the loading performance metric into account. And as I said, this is fully automated. So here you see, for example, the Google Mail, you see that this is seen by Kadiska as a single page application versus the website of Kadiska, which is considered to be a multiple page application. If you want to see how accurate it is, so you can simply click on this icon and you have the details here. AppDex configuration, which is automatic. The application time discovered by Kadiska is an SPA with 100% of confidence that this is correct. And the targeted value has been also automatically calculated based on the historical data we have in our database. So in this case, the threshold is 85 milliseconds, which is the targeted value taken into account by the AppDex calculation. So the AppDex score is based on the API call processing time metric for SPA and is based on the loading metric for MPA. Depending on the time frame I've selected to calculate the AppDex values, in my case the last 1 day, Kadiska will take historical data into account to determine whether the application performance is improving or degrading. So you see, for example, here, in the case of app.kadiska.com application, the performance is actually degrading compared to historical data. While for Asana, the application performance is actually improving compared to historical data. If you want to know the historical data that are taken into account to calculate the trend, you can just go there to the question mark to see that in my case, for the one-day calculated AppDex, in fact, Kadiska took the 7 days before the selected time frame to calculate the baseline and to determine whether the application performances are degrading or improving. If I take another time frame like the last 2 weeks, for example, you will see that Kadiska will take the previous 2 weeks into account to determine the trend. When you have identified an application for which performance is degrading, for example, the next logical step for you may be to know the scope of the degradation. Scope of the degradation is provided by means of the number of users by category in the AppDex calculation. So for example, if I take here this application Miro, I see the score, the AppDex score is 43, which is quite degraded. And the scope of the degradation is provided here, just here. You have 2 users that are really experiencing a bad application performance, which are critical. Then you have 4 users that have a tolerable user experience, and only 1 user is not experiencing any problem. If you want to know more about these users, the simplest way is to just click on this zone. So if you click here, you are automatically redirected to the application's dashboard, which is filtered on the specific application and which will provide you with all users' contacts in terms of connectivity and related performances. If you do want to troubleshoot why this application is slow, then the easiest way is to click directly on the AppDex score. Depending on the nature of the application, you will be either redirected to the API call processing analysis page or to the web page analysis dashboard. So here I'm dealing with an SPA. So if I click here, I'm redirected to the API call scope analysis, again focused on this specific application. Last but not least, in addition to the AppDex score, we also provide a score for the percentage of total resources transactions that failed. So if I take the example of the Google Meet application here, you see that 7.2% of all resources related transactions failed, and you see that this percentage is decreasing. If I do want to analyze these resources in error, I simply click on this value and I'm automatically redirected to the resources analysis dashboard, focused on the application I'm looking at and focused on the metric errors so that I have the error rate evolution over time here, and I can go to the list of resources and sort on the errors to really understand and identify the different API calls that have been in errors.